Then Kwame Kilpatrick arrived at federal court for the first step of a corruption trial that could put him in prison for years. Our Team 7 coverage begins with 7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo. And Heather, what happened inside court?
Well, it was a busy day at court. We got to see the former mayor for the first time in a while in person, and he dropped a bit of a shocker this morning, saying that his attorney may have a conflict. Could the historic Kilpatrick corruption trial be delayed? A federal judge will now hold a hearing next week to determine if Kwame Kilpatrick's lawyer has a conflict of interest in the case. 7 Action News has learned that Jim Thomas previously represented one of the witnesses who could testify in the trial. Thomas isn't commenting on the details of the conflict.
I am not withdrawing at this time, and I have no intention of withdrawing. I think that this is something that's unfolding, and as it unfolds, then I'll be able to speak more about it.
Kilpatrick, his father Bernard Kilpatrick, his longtime friend Bobby Ferguson, and former Water Department Chief Victor Mercado all had to appear in court today. 400 prospective jurors watched them on a two-way video conference so they could determine if they have any connection to the defendants or the lawyers involved in the case. Judge Nancy Edmonds told the jurors about the racketeering, extortion, and fraud charges against the 4, but made it very clear that jurors must weigh only what they hear in court and that an indictment does not equal guilt. The jurors then spent hours filling out a 25-page questionnaire.
She's trying to give the jurors an opportunity to know who the parties are, what the charges are, and get information from the questionnaire and advise them that they want a full and complete and honest answers to all of the questions.
The judge told the jurors they're not trying to find people who've never heard of Kwame Kilpatrick. They only want people who can be impartial. But she said they can no longer watch stories about this case or search the internet for information about the defendants. They also cannot talk about the case with anyone. That includes using social media.
We want a juror that served like in the Casey Anthony trial, because as you remember, Nancy Grace had a whole show dedicated to this woman for a year, and they were still able to find jurors who, you know, could set aside all the publicity that they've seen and that they've heard and judge the case on the evidence presented by the prosecutors, and that's all we want in this case.
The 18 jurors who are ultimately chosen will be making a major commitment. This case is expected to last at least 4 months, possibly longer. Reporting live at the federal courthouse in downtown Detroit, I'm Heather Catallo, 7 Action News. Diana?
Well, Heather, do the legal teams think they can get an impartial jury? Let's start there.
They're very hopeful that they can. They're really not going to know until they get those questionnaires back, and that'll happen in short order here. The jury pool is very, very big, 400 people to choose from, and they're very hopeful that they will be able to find impartial jurors. Even Jim Thomas told us today, he said, listen, they want to hold this trial in Detroit. They want to be able to pick a fair jury here.
All right. Thank you, Heather.